A lot of you are frustrated dealing with flooding on a regular basis. A lot of you still cleaning up. It's what you see behind me right now. We're talking about all of that.
Now they're all earlier today, we saw about
In our churchyard, we're putting up a blue line. The line marks the height water will reach if a hurricane equivalent to Hugo were to hit today, or in 2050, or in 2100. If you stand by the line, you can see what would happen to our churchyard in a major storm, but that's not the problem. Our churchyard is one of the highest points on the peninsula. The problem is that by the time the water reaches us, most of our neighbors would be much deeper underwater. Burke High School would be underwater. Much of the east side would be underwater. Ironically, America Street would be underwater.
Good evening. I'm Andy White from Mount Pleasant Presbyterian Church. In 2019, Charleston experienced 89 days of flooding. Sea level rise, lack of green infrastructure, storm surge, lack of thoughtful development, and weak policy and regulations all contribute to the ever-increasing threat of rising waters. While the earth provides the natural ground surface and an abundance of plants to soak up floodwaters, we have continued to undermine, destroy, and develop over this necessary habitat. For example, since 1992, Charleston County has lost 10,800 acres of trees to development, the equivalent of 8,200 football fields. The lack of green infrastructure is found more often in predominantly black and brown neighborhoods. According to The Guardian, predominantly white neighborhoods have 11 times more green space than those where 40% of the residents are black or of a different ethnicity.
Nearly 90% of Charleston homes and businesses are vulnerable to storm surge and flooding damage, with low-lying, low-income neighborhoods being among the most vulnerable. Well, in KJM's House meetings, hundreds of stories were shared highlighting the devastating impact of flooding, leading to evacuation costs and sometimes even permanent displacement. A 2020 article from the Post and Courier states, flooding is more than just a nuisance. It's an intensifier of inequality. While it affects both rich and poor, those with less wealth are more vulnerable to its impacts. Flooding can cause transportation hardships that lead to lost work days and health risk for those who have to slog through water teeming with E. coli and toxic chemicals. That may mean less money in a paycheck and more going out for medical expenses, further deepening financial insecurity. It's past time to do right by the earth, to do right by our neighbors, to do right by our children and our grandchildren. We must act now.